A merger and an acquisition is subtle but distinct. It's kind of like the difference between a modern marriage and one of those husband-stealing raids that female tribes of Amazons would go on in ancient times. Right? A merger, like a marriage, is a mutual agreement, like a good marriage anyway. Two entities come together and agree to move forward as a single entity. What this means if you're corporations is that the corporations individually cancel out their individual stock and then they reissue new stock together, which is then traded on the exchange. Now, when in an acquisition, there's none of this touchy-feely moving forward together stuff going on. It's a lot more brutal, all right? It's basically one company gobbles up another company by buying all of its shares. How does this work in effect? Well, the investors in the target company, right, the company being bought, essentially surrender their shares for shares in the acquiring company, probably a lot fewer of those shares. What happens then is that the target company essentially disappears, and then the acquiring company's shares continue to be traded as if nothing had happened. Now, some acquisitions are every bit as brutal as a raid by a bunch of marauding Amazons on a village full of cowering men, all right? But some go actually relatively amicably because the target companies grudgingly give in to the acquisition attempt. Now, when this happens, a lot of the times, the target companies will say, can we refer to this as a merger instead of an acquisition? Why do they do that? Well, for perhaps in the same reason that in ancient times, a man might worry that being whacked over the head and carted off by a bunch of Amazons might damage his reputation. So today, CEOs worry that being gobbled up by a competitor might make them look, I don't know, weak, feckless, ineffectual.